So next item is public hearing. We're going to have a public hearing on the town treasurer warrant article. Can I have a motion to open the public hearing?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
The public hearing on the town treasurer warrant article is now open. Mr. Malaguti.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. So this is a conversation that we've been having for a while now. It occurred, it was placed on the ballot last year. It failed. And the consensus of the town council at the last meeting was, like the year before, that there's enough to talk about here that we ought to notice up a public hearing. We were up against the deadline to do so. And the purpose of tonight's public hearing is to hear from the public and to determine one thing, whether to move forward with the process, which if the consensus after tonight's hearing is, yes, we should move forward, requires notification to the Attorney General, to the Department of Revenue Administration, and to the Secretary of State to determine whether or not the proposed charter amendment complies with the law. It then comes back to us, where the town council would have the opportunity to say yes or no to move that to the ballot. So we could go through that process, as we did last year. We could get all the way to the end and decide, no, we're not going to move this to the ballot, even though we've gotten that advice back from the state that it would be legal to do so. And that's where we are tonight.
Okay, Mr. Finance Director. You've brought this forward last year. You're bringing it forward again this year. Is there anything you'd like to add here? I know some in the community have said that you were being told to do this. I would like to know who's telling you to do it.
So I understand the frustration that people have where this was a warrant article that failed last year. My concerns last year remain the same, that anybody can become elected the treasurer with zero experience. They can essentially shut out the finance department and do whatever they feel is necessary or potentially bad. Where the voters said no last year, I was under the impression we would leave it be. However, certain things happened in July that raised concerns from the public about budget committee members being able to control the finances. Where that is not the case, and the treasurer is the individual that could control the finances, I felt it was worth bringing up and talking about again, because there has been concerns from previous incidents for a position that actually does not have the authority to move money between bank accounts. Where the treasurer does have that authority, they do have the ability to lock the finance department out, remove our signature authority, limit our access to bank accounts, and do what they deem appropriate, whether that is in the best interest of the town or not. That is the reason why I'm bringing it forward. I felt it was necessary that we do our due diligence after the concerns that were raised back in July for a position that doesn't actually have the authority to move money, to make sure that everyone that was concerned has the opportunity to speak about it again on a position that actually can move money. It's $40 million is our operating budget. And right now, all you have to be is 18 years old and get one more vote. That's the only qualification.
But we are also the bank for the schools, so it's $126 million.
Correct.
Okay. Ladies and, is that it?
Nope. Yes, that is it for right now.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, this is a public hearing, and for the public to express their desire for or against or anything else regarding the town treasurer. Public hearing is now open. Name and
You want
address,
my
please.
name again? Daniel
Yes, please.
Bouchard, 8 O'Connell Drive, Londonderry.
It's only because we have to keep our minutes. I appreciate it.
Okay. I guess I got mixed reactions on this, okay? And I understand where Justin's coming from, okay, to protect the town. However, the people voted last year, and they voted no. When I brought up the issue of Gilchrist Road, all right, I was told the voters passed it, even though it was slim margin, so it goes. So I think, if it's good for one article, it should be good for another article. But I understand what Justin is saying also. So I don't know how you fix this. Maybe give it a pause for a year?
So the only new information we now have is
Yep.
DRA has told us we can run a background check on somebody if they're appointed by the council.
Yep.
That's something new that we didn't know last year. So that's the only thing new the council knows, just so you're aware.
Is it possible to do that on somebody who's running?
No.
So you have no way of vetting these people? Well, it's the same thing. We have no way of vetting you guys up there either.
And again,
So, you know,
listen, you can run for any office you want to run for. But that's the only difference. We may or may not do this,
yeah.
but it's been brought forward again. There was a lot of discussion because there was a budget committee member that didn't resign. There was a lot of upheaval, and that brought this forward.
But the budget committee has no control over the finances.
We know that.
Okay, they're advisory only.
We know.
And so,
Well,
So
that-
that's, if you don't mind, that's part of the reason why I thought that we should be doing due diligence, is the concern was there for somebody that doesn't have the authority to move the money. This person does have that authority. So I thought we should discuss it if that concern was present for somebody that doesn't have the authority, that to protect it, we should at least discuss it again.
now, have we ever had any issues whatsoever with anybody who's served in that position?
Well,
Does
we've had the
anybody-
same treasurer for the last 14 years.
Huh? Okay. All right. And you're doing a good job, so just stay where you are. Anyway, no, but you get paid a lot of money, all right? Yeah, that's my only, I don't know which way you go with it, John.
Neither do we. That's why we're doing
Okay,
this.
I mean, and I understand him wanting to protect the town from anything, because you hear sometimes, you know, a town up north or whatever where, you know, funds have been missing and stuff like that. So,
Weigh it this way, Dan. This is the way I looked at it. The guy who's in charge of $126 million brought this forward and said he thinks that we should be more careful. So we're not going to ignore him.
right,
So that's why we're doing this.
okay. So, my only thing is, the voters said no last year, so maybe give it a pause, look at it further. Not during the budget season. The worst time to be doing something like this is during the budget season. You guys have enough on your plate as it is. All right? So,
Thank you. Thank you.
Richard Belinsky, 89 Hall Road. I guess I only got two things to say. One is I understand Justin's concerns. The fact that you found out from DRA that you can do a background check. I brought that up 20 years ago, that anybody that's in a department head that's in charge of money should have a background check, or at least a financial background, what their scores are. I volunteered to do it when I ran for treasurer, and they wouldn't do it. So that, if you can only do it after elected, work with the legislature to change that so that if they run for the position, you can do it ahead of time. If they know they don't have good credit, don't run. That's their choice. This is not new. Over 20 years ago, I brought this up. That's one thing. The other thing that I got concerns with is the fact that people did vote it down. You have the right to bring it back every year. If you decide to do that, I'll do another warrant article to offset that and put a 3-year moratorium on it and see if that passes. Because it's kind of like the people not being listened to. And the last thing, at the, I think it was the October 6th meeting, Peterborough was brought up. And while it wasn't directly said that Peterborough had a problem with their town treasurer, that's the impression that was left. Because the chair asked the finance director if they lost $1 million. I believe the number was more like $2.3 million. And the finance director tried to say, well, that didn't really have anything to do with what we're talking about, the treasurer position, because that was a foreign cyber attack. I got the articles. in my pocket. What they ended up losing, because they didn't know if they could get it back from their insurance company. I don't know if they ever got any of it back or part of it back.
Minimal.
Huh?
Minimal back.
Minimal back, okay, I don't know what the final outcome of that was. My concern was, though, well, nobody said it was the treasurer over there, that was the impression that was left, because when Justin tried to correct that, and thank you, Justin, for doing that, the chair then said, well, did they lose $1 million? And he truthfully answered yes. So if we're gonna bring up examples of towns that have been through this, that's fine. Let's make sure that they're actually examples that have a bearing on this, and not something where if you kind of leave a little bit out, it sounds like, oh, see, they had a treasurer problem. That was wrong. And that's the misleading stuff that goes on in this town.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Christine Perez, 5 Wesley Drive. Perception is everything. My concern is if you bring this up again, it's going to be perceived or could be perceived by the public that you're not listening, that you didn't listen to the fact that the town said no, and you're just going to go ahead and do it until you get what you want. Perception's everything. If you put it off another year, it doesn't look quite so blatantly like you're not listening. But it's just the perception that people get. Thank you.
Thank you.
Jonathan Esposito, 5 Shelley Drive, Londonderry. Mr. Chairman, I do want to apologize in the past if my tone has exceeded myself when addressing the council. I thank you for the opportunity to address the public hearing tonight. I do wish to speak to the issue of the town treasurer becoming a potential warrant article again. I wish to raise several concerns that I raised during the public meeting last year in regards to the concerns that the finance director raised. I apologize. I don't know as much about municipal finance as Mr. Campo, admittedly, but I am a finance professional myself, and there are some items of note that I wish to raise. The two concerns that were raised with the town treasurer being an elected rather than appointed position last year were the fact that a well-meaning, perhaps bumbling member of the public could get elected to this position and then engage in, some sort of transaction that would materially disrupt the financial operations of the town of Londonderry. However, as another citizen just raised, and I believe as you acknowledged, Mr. Chairman, as I believe the treasurer acknowledged as well, we have not seen an issue where a perfectly fine elected treasurer has engaged in some error or misdeed that has significantly, materially disrupted the financial operations of the town of Londonderry. So that is the first note that I wish to raise. The second is that I do believe Mr. Campo is speaking honestly, but I think he leaves out some points in regards to the checks and balances that do currently exist on the town treasurer position as an elected official. Mr. Campo was kind enough to illuminate for me last year when I asked if we had the private sector version of a rule of 3 where there were checks and balances to the financial transactions that are being made. So in the private sector, if you've got a staff accountant making entries in an accounting system, you've got a finance director, a comptroller, a senior accountant, usually multiple people reviewing that. In this particular instance, Mr. Campo did highlight last year during the public hearing that not only does he as the finance director serve as a check and balance against any transactions that the elected town treasurer may make, but the esteemed Mr. Malaguti as the town manager also functions as yet another check and balance against transactions that the town treasurer as an elected official may attempt to make. Not only that, but these folks are bound by the rules and policies and procedures that are set at the state Department of Revenue, so that actually functions as an additional check and balance, because if this person exceeds the scope of their role, they can not only face removal from public office, but they can be subject to criminal action. So there are already significant protections in place to ensure that the town treasurer as an elected official does not disrupt the financial operations of the town of Londonderry. I am to understand that there have been disruptions in other communities, as the chairman and as other individuals noted, but as the chairman is frequently fond of noting, we're Londonderry, we're just better than that. And speaking as somebody who works in an elected capacity with Mr. Campo, I know that he works very closely with elected officials, that he would do everything that he could to prevent something like that from happening. I'm not speaking as a trustee of the trust fund tonight, but technically myself and my 2 other trustees of trust funds, who do also manage a significant amount of money from the town, could vote at a public meeting in the future for Mr. Campo to no longer function as our bookkeeper, at which time he would no longer have the signature authority to submit forms on our behalf to the state, and he would also no longer have the authority to conduct banking transactions on our behalf. However, I can personally speak to the fact that Mr. Campo works far too closely with our public officials to allow something like that to happen. Thank you.
Thank you.
May I ask a question, Mr. Chair?
Sure. Public hearing.
So is it, maybe there's a compromise, and I don't know if it's allowed under the charter or the law, but what if we, instead of having one town treasurer elected position, made it a treasury board where there were 2 or 3 elected positions, and then when money had to be moved or something like that, it would require 2 or 3 signatures rather than just one?
That would also require a charter amendment.
Fair enough, but that still is an option.
That's something that DRA would have to sign off on, and that's a larger charter amendment than what we're looking at. And just for clarifications, we can't do background checks on elected officials after they're elected. What DRA said was the legislative body can do background checks on the applicants that the legislative body is the council, before they appoint.
Right, I understood that. So, but separate to that, even if it's a difficult path, instead of trying to put this warrant article forward again and seeing what the public has to say about it, is this a possible third option?
The amendment would probably require a commission.
So I think we can certainly get a legal opinion on that. I'm skeptical it's a creative idea, but I'm skeptical for this reason. I believe state statute requires there to be a treasurer. Our charter defines how we select the treasurer. But not only does state statute require that we have a treasurer, it sets forth the duties and the powers of the treasurer. And I think that where those statutes don't contemplate a board of treasurers, I'm skeptical that would be doable, but I'm certainly happy to look into it if that's the consensus.
Sure. Take a look into it. We'll see what they say. Willing to look at anything. Anyone else, public comment for the public hearing on the town treasurer?
Glenn Douglas, 6 Overlook Ave. Kind of curious exactly what happened in July. I think I know what it is. But if you can do a background check for a treasurer, are we doing background checks for everyone else that's appointed? Because there's a lot of people in this town that are appointed. Are we only going to do a background check for finance? And the one thing I will mention is when this came up last time, the suggestion was to have a town employee serve in this position. But the former treasurer, who's been a treasurer for 14 years, said it should not be, should not be a town employee. I think she said a retired person who might be interested in doing this on the side. But if you're going to do background checks, I think you should do background checks for everything, especially if you have the right to do it. I mean, I don't see why we're singling it out for just the treasurer's position if it gets done. I'm also not for this. I mean, it was $800 to $999. It failed. Everyone that showed up on the public hearing that was held 366 days ago pretty much said they didn't want this, didn't want it to move forward, and here we are again, based on something which I don't see how it even correlates to the treasurer's position, but that's all.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, just to answer the question, well, why not for more appointed positions? The legal opinion we got was that you can do a background check if the position entails the handling of money. So I think it would be possible to expand who we do background checks on, but not vastly.
Thank you. Anyone else for public comment?
Good evening. Deb Paul here, 118 Hardy Road. I think it's kind of funny that 1 year and 1 day I was sitting up there, and this was brought forward, and we had a bunch of people here speaking on how they were against this. And I was, and I think Councilor Chad was also with me, who voted against it. And we put it onto the ballot, and people voted against it. I really think that the scariest part of all of it is when someone is appointed, and I hear this all the time from people on different boards who are appointed to different boards, I will not stand up and question anything because I know I won't get appointed again. And I think that's a sad comment to make, and it hurts me deeply to have to make that comment. But that's a obvious thing. This way, an elected person is separate and doesn't have to worry about questioning anything that they see or not see or how things move. I thought one of Justin's biggest concerns was that he did not have enough help in his department, and I see us hiring for all these new departments, and one of the departments I felt that really is in need and does a huge amount of work here is the finance department. So in our reorganization that we have been going through in the last year, I would have thought that that would have been a priority, was to make sure that the finance department was healthy and had enough people to handle things so that Justin wasn't feeling overwhelmed and stressed. So I, for one, am against this. I think that leave well enough be. And I don't think, I tried finding something online where it was the treasurer that actually did something financially wrong, and I couldn't find anything. That doesn't mean it's not out there, I just couldn't find it. So if you do find something where it is the treasurer that actually does something, I would like to see that.
I believe back in 2008, yeah.
So sorry.
Give me 1 second, I have it somewhere.
I'm sorry, what is the question?
Mr. Chairman, if I may, in the meantime, just to address two of those things, because I just think they're factually not correct. One is, I've never heard the finance director, and I've certainly never asserted that the reason we were suggesting looking at a change to the town charter in terms of how the treasurer is installed had anything to do with Justin needing more help. I've never heard that before.
I'm not gonna have a back and forth.
And,
okay.
Mr. Chairman, I can assure you that staffing in the finance department is as much a priority as it is in every other department. So I would just like to make sure those two things are known.
She was
There was
looking
a
for
question, I'm sorry,
examples.
I'm sorry. There was a question she asked him that I didn't hear, so I'm trying to find out what the question
Yeah,
was.
she was just looking for examples.
And
sorry, thank you.
He said he had one, and he was getting it.
Thank you.
Horace Seymour versus, it looks like the state of New Hampshire, but it was Litchfield's treasurer.
Say that one more time.
Horace Seymour, and
Yeah.
it was the town of Litchfield's treasurer.
Okay, and what did they do?
They stole money.
Okay, how? I'm just curious.
So
So let's not,
embezzling at least $135,000 from the town of Litchfield.
Okay. Okay. And I apologize if I misspoke, but I could have swore that last year, and I'll have to go back and look at the tapes, that one of the reasons you were looking for somebody was to work closer with you and help you with it because you were doing it all yourself. And I could be wrong, but I'll check. I'll post it.
thank you. Anyone else? So we're gonna hear from the town treasurer, and then I'm gonna close the public hearing.
Kathy Wagner. I heard a lot of the town rejected the Warren article. That was my fault. And I'd just like to make the record clear to all of you that I'm the one who asked for this to be looked at. Because of the 14 years I've served on the treasurer's position, my skills in business, my skills with my husband and the public, serving this public entity of the town of Londonderry for over probably 30 years. I mean, and seeing what my family was put through doesn't bode well because it's even worse now. I used to go home with a lot of my opponents and we'd have a drink and we'd talk and shake hands. That doesn't happen anymore. So you're putting yourselves at risk of getting an agenda-driven treasurer. And that's what I'm worried about. Do I want to go out next year? Oh, I'm sorry. Kathy Wagner, 12 McGregor Court, Unit 302, 15 Perimeter Road, and 4 lots at Pillsbury Lane. So I'm on Hovey. So I got some property in town. So I can speak to this as a citizen. But the atmosphere of even what I see here tonight, the atmosphere has gone so far down and so deteriorated. It's kind of tough on anybody who wants to throw their hat in the ring because of what can be done to you. And trust me, everything's been done to me, to the point where someone has even called my employer and said that I was doing illegal things with their product, and and they can get away with that kind of stuff. So trust me, there are people with an agenda in this community to destroy anybody they don't like. And that was probably part of the reason why I asked 2 years ago that we reconsider this position, because what the position is doesn't deserve the ridicule it gets because of becoming an elected official. And that was the major reason behind this. Now, to say that we should wait a year and do all of that other stuff, we've done a lot of revotes. So I don't see that as an issue at all. I think it was my bad, and I take all the responsibility for that failure last year, because I didn't get out and educate everybody on this position. So that's why I think 199 votes, is that what we're saying it lost by?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe if I had shown up and said why I was for this, people might have been able to come up with a better understanding of why we were going this way. In some of the statements that were said, the town treasurer statute was revised in 2016, I believe. So all of the same regulations and responsibilities and all that are placed on either they're elected or appointed. So there's no issue there. An appointed person is going to be just as responsible as an elected official. So I want to get that straightened out. Second, Patrick, I'm sorry, to your committee suggestion. In the banking world, it's going to be very difficult for that to happen because you have to have one signer on the account and one signer only who is the true responsible signer in the sense of a business and a municipality. There is the corporate ladder and you have your, so it's banks are pretty strict about that now because of all the fraud that's going on. So banks have really started to reevaluate that.
Excuse me. If we can't keep the conversation down, because I can hear you up here and you're interrupting her, I'm asking you to show the
don't care what
courtcy
she
to the
says.
speaker and stop talking in the back.
That's
or
exactly,
take it outside.
That's exactly why.
Or take it outside.
Exactly why it should be appointed and not elected anymore, because that's a member of the press. Think about that. Who has a personal grudge against me and has used that paper her whole life to try to destroy me.
Let's stay on the treasurer thing, please.
Well, I'm sorry. I'm sick of this stuff. I don't have to put up with it anymore.
What is your point of order? What is the rules? What is the rule? What is the rules violation? What is the rules violation?
Not remaining on the topic, Mr. Chairman.
That's not a rule. Point of order overruled. Please
Exactly, another reason exactly why it should be appointed. Because people volunteer because they want to serve and do the right thing. And a treasurer should not have to be subject to this because they're volunteering. Now, in regards to Peterborough, it was fraud, and most of it was recovered. It had nothing to do with the treasurer, so that was definitely, I agree with that statement, that we shouldn't say the treasurer in Peterborough did anything. To Dan's point, why are we bringing this up now? We have to, because of the calendar. If we're going to put it on as a warrant article, we have to get it on the calendar. We have to discuss it now, whether it's budget season or not. Just like anybody, if Richard wants to bring his warrant article in, so be it. We're going to have to discuss that too. It's budget season, and that's how it works. I just really think that it has come to a point where it was it's very noble. It is the right thing, in my opinion, and Justin, I really appreciate everything, but I have to disagree with you respectfully in the sense that I believe if we're going to move forward with this, I want a citizen and not somebody already on the town. I want that transparency. I think everybody misunderstands that they are welcome to look at the books anytime they'd like. So there is transparency there. But I feel that it was established when we incorporated 300 years ago. We didn't think we were going to have cell phones that were more powerful than computers that put the man on the moon. And as we know, the state of New Hampshire moves slowly. They gave us this option for an appointment, and I feel that that is the appropriate method moving forward. For someone to have to go out and put up signs, campaign, I've done that a long time if you bring in my town council experience and everything else. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of work, and I give every one of you credit for stepping up because I know where y'all are, where you're coming from. But if you've noticed, people aren't volunteering anymore. People aren't volunteering for this. We're begging people to step on boards, to volunteer for positions, and it's like everything's become an agenda rather than a service to the community. And that's why I have highly pushed to have this become an appointed position.
Thank you. I'll accept the motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anything further from the council on this subject before I move forward?
A couple things, Mr. Chair, if I may. To the resident that spoke earlier, who was previously on the council, just for a point of clarification, that was my first, let me start over. So the reason for my no vote was because I had a misunderstanding as if that vote was a no, in my opinion, not a no to put it on the ballot. So that vote that I voted no for was incorrect and should have been flip-flopped at the time. However, I have since then changed my personal opinion because of education, really, and a better understanding, and I will always be a person to allow the voters put forward to the voters for a vote. And can someone elucidate a little bit more about Peterborough? Because I recall that their town administrator said something along the lines of that, like, all small governments are, like Peterborough and other municipalities are not as well protected as big banks or cities and stuff like that. What was the results of that investigation?
from what I heard, the results of the investigation is that they did not blame the town treasurer. What they said is that by statute, the town treasurer is always responsible, regardless of what happens. At the end of the day, they have to provide the checks and balances for that community. They did not directly lay fault. I mean, what actually happened was they transferred, like we do, they transferred money to the school to make a payment, like we do. And they got tricked to sending it to the wrong place. What the investigation said is that there were not enough checks and balances in place. No one got legally held responsible, but what they're saying is that you should have had more rules, more everything.
Protections.
What I think Justin is suggesting is that if he had somebody who actually gave additional oversight and other ideas, and he would have not more help, but someone else to talk to. Not that the current town treasurer may resign tomorrow. And if she ran again, she'd probably be the town treasurer again. She's won 5 times in a row. So, but I think what you're trying to do is plan for the future.
I'm trying to protect the town in terms of this is a high-risk position. You're in control of $126 million throughout the year. That putting that in the hands of anybody is concerning. I wouldn't let my personal finances be put in the hands of anybody. And we right now we're allowing all the taxpayers' money to be put in the hands of potentially anybody. And that's where my concern comes in.
Who does
And
this locally?
What?
Who appoints a treasurer now? Hudson?
Oh,
That was my question.
Barrington, Campton, Derry, Greenfield, Greenland, Hebron, Holderness, Hooksett, Hudson, Litchfield, Madison, Manchester, Merrimack, Merrimack Village District, Nashua, Pelham, Stratham, Swayze, and Wolfboro.
So this isn't something new. This is not unique.
Correct. We would not be the first ones to be doing this.
Okay. All right. So the question in front of the council is do you want to continue to investigate this and then hear it again in January and then make a final decision, or do you not? That's the question in front of the council. You can go through the whole process with DRA and say no.
I think a wise person looks at all their options, and I think that, yes, I understand that it was voted no previously last year. However, there's been new information, additional education. And like you said, we can call an audible all the way up until the last minute. Why wouldn't we explore and look at all those options? That's my own opinion.
So I'm looking for a consensus of the council. Do you want to let DRA do the work or not let DRA do the work? That's really what it comes down to.
I'm in favor.
I'm fine with looking at it. I'm good with DRA looking into this further.
Okay. This does not mean we're going forward with it.
Of course.
It means we're going to do the investigation.
Did they not look into it last year?
They did, but you have to resubmit again this year.
Okay.
There's a process that you have to follow.
Great question.
No, but that is a good question. They did look into it last year. They did give us their advice, and we did move forward.
Thank you.
We may not move forward this year. Depends. Let's see what happens. That's good. Is that what you need?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. So just to be clear, it's the language that was noticed up for today, and that's the language that we're going to be sending to DRA.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.